شبابا قد أنابا وإلى الله استجابا إن من يرجو الثواب لا يبالي.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Brothers and sisters, inshallah tonight's talk will be on a chapter in the Quran, Surah Ibrahim, verse number 22. And in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us and shows us the dialogue Shaytaan, the devil, Iblis, who have with the inhabitants of the fire of hell after everything has been decided. After the people of the Jannah have entered into Jannah, and after the people of the hellfire, Jahannam, have entered into Jahannam, and the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been passed down onto every single one of you, and you have earned and you have entered your final destination, whether it be Jannah or whether it be Jahannam. This conversation will take place between Shaytaan and his people inside of Jahannam. And one of the scholars, Hassan al-Basri, when he came to this verse, he mentioned that after the decisions have been made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and after the people who disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and deserved the wrath of Allah, the anger of Allah, have been thrown into the pits of Jahannam. And after the people of heaven have entered, those people who deserve the pleasure of Allah, and they have entered into Jannah, the Shaytaan, the devil, Iblis, will speak, and he'll be given a member which is made from the fire, and he'll be made to speak. He will speak to his people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relates this to us in the Quran, in Surah Ibrahim, verse 22. Shaytaan will say to his followers, and they are his followers because Allah calls them in the Quran, Hizb Shaytaan, the people of Shaytaan, the party of Shaytaan, the group of Shaytaan, the followers of Shaytaan, those who listen to the devil in this dunya, those who follow the footsteps of the devil, Iblis, those who are distracted by him in this life, those who fell into the traps of Iblis, the Shaytaan, his people. And he will address them in the Quran. Allah says, لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرِ. And when the decision, and after the decision has been made, has been passed down, the decision that we spoke about earlier, the Shaytaan will then say, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ. Indeed, Allah promised you. Allah promised you, all of you, Shaytaan is speaking, and his promise was the truth, the reality. Allah promised you that if you do certain things, you'll get certain rewards. Allah asked you to follow, to obey his commandments. He demanded from you certain things in this dunya, in the life before. And He would reward you for those things on the basis of His command and His demand. He would reward you for those things, for following His orders, for following His demand. And His reward and His promise was the reality, was the truth. وعد الحق, the truth. Because it will become apparent and obvious for the people now, after they have entered, after they've gone through the judgment, after they have entered the grave, been resurrected, and they've gone through the long day of reckoning, and they have been entered into the fire, they'll see it happening before their eyes, unfolding before their eyes, these events and these realities and these promises of Allah. And they'll realize that it was the truth, the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the truth. So it will become apparent to them. And then the Shaytaan will say, وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ, I also promised you. Allah promised you, and I also promised you. فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ, but the difference between my promise and your promise is that I lied. My promise was not the truth, it was not the reality. My promise was a deception. My promise, I broke it. I lied. I broke my promises. I also told you that do not do this, do not do that. Do not follow the sunnah. Do not practice your deen. Do not mix with religious people. Do not seek knowledge. Do not attend this lesson. Do not go to this masjid. Do not obey your parents. Take riba. That is interesting. Look at that. That is intriguing. Treat this person in such a manner, in this way. Cheat this person, hit that person, steal from that person, backbite that person. Live this way. Do not practice deen. Smoke, take drugs. Hang out in nightclubs, go to clubs, have girlfriends. So I promised you. I promised you. But my promise, I broke it. I broke my promise. And the Shaytaan is very cunning, brothers and sisters. Shaytaan is very cunning. Subhanallah. The Shaytaan will not come at you directly. When it's time for your salat, your fajr salat, and you wake up, when you put on the alarm at 4:15, the earliest time for fajr, you put it on, the alarm goes off, you wake up, the Shaytaan won't come to you and say, do not make wudu, do not pray. He won't say that. He'll say, just put on the alarm for a little bit later, half an hour later. And then half an hour you sleep, wake up to the next alarm, snooze it, later for another 10 minutes, another 10 minutes, another 20 minutes, till Fajr, the time of Fajr is gone. So he's cunning. And Salah is very important. Al-Muhim, the Shaytaan, the point being the Shaytaan will come at you, not directly, but in a cunning way. So you'll miss your prayer. And prayer is so important. How important is prayer? Salah is a command that was prescribed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the heavens. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed how many prayers in the beginning? Think about it. How many prayers in the beginning did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? 50. He ordered the ummah to pray 50 times. And then the Prophet ﷺ takes the command down. And in the lower heavens he meets who? Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam, what does he say? That your ummah, go back up, your ummah will not be able to perform 50 prayers. Why? Because Musa alayhi salam had more experience. And in that point of time, then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in dealing with people. So he knew the psychology of people, the mentality of people. He said, my ummah didn't do it, go back up. So a series of ascends and descends happen till it comes down to how many? 5. But the reward still remains 50, because Allah does not change His words. The question is, brothers and sisters, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His knowledge is perfect, why didn't He say to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the beginning 5? Why did He say 50? If He knew that the prayer will come down from 50 to 5, why did He not say 5 in the beginning? Amongst the wisdom is that Allah is showing us that your whole life is meant to be for prayer. Your whole life is meant to be for prayer. Imagine if you had to pray 50 times a day. Every half an hour, every 10 minutes you have to make wudu, stand up, pray, 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 50 times in a day. So your life will be all prayer. So He's showing us that your life is meant to be prayer, salah. So this is how important prayer is. And this is how some of us treat prayer when it comes to Fajr, delay. When it comes to Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, especially Dhuhr and Asr, when we are at work, we delay it, we overlook it. So this is how important prayer is. And when you learn from this that the Shaytaan is cunning, that he does not come at you directly, but he comes to you in a cunning way. So he will say that I gave you promises as well, but I lied. My promises were a lie. This is why my promises have ended with this suffering. Look at where my promises have ended you up, in Jahannam. This was the result of my promises. So the people will now demand answers. They'll look at the people of heaven. They'll look at the people of heaven, subhanAllah. The people of Jahannam will look at the people of heaven. And they'll see that the bliss that they are in, the pleasures that they are in. And they'll run around. Because Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ مَفَازًا, that indeed the muttaqeen, the pious, will be victorious. In them, in heaven, they'll enjoy all the luxurious rewards that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to them in Jannah. They'll say, what about us? What about us, Shaytaan? They'll be speaking to their leader. Shaytaan will say, look, listen, I made those promises, but do not come to me and ask for rewards, because I lied. So the people will start to scream and yell, it is all your fault, Shaytaan. It is all your fault, at least, that we have ended up like this. Because people will start to play the blaming game now. And this will be evident in the day of judgment. People will start to blame each other. This is the common trait that people will have. Running around. He did this to me. It is because of him. And here in Jahannam, they'll keep on doing it. It's not my fault, it's your fault. In Jahannam even, after the day of reckoning. So the Shaytaan will say, hold up, wait. He'll say, وَمَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ. I did not force you. I did not have power, authority over you. Shaytaan did not take you by the collar and make you do this haram thing. That Shaytaan did not pull you by the ear and take you to that haram place. It was you. Allah says in another verse in the Quran, لَيْسَ لَكَ عَلَيْهِمْ سُلْطَانٍ, that my servants, the pious servants, that you do not have any authority over them. You do not possess them. You cannot force them. إِلَّا أَن دَعَوْتُكُمْ إِلَّا أَن دَعَوْتُكُمْ. That except I invited you. I did not have any authority over you. I only invited you. فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي. And you accepted. You accepted my invitation. Shaytaan uses the word da'wah here. We use the word da'wah, but in a positive meaning. In a positive meaning, to call people to Islam. Shaytaan also uses the word da'wah, but in the negative meaning there. I also gave you da'wah. I invited you. Look at this. This was nice. Do this. This is nice. Behave in this manner. This is nice. Have some fun in your life before you become practicing. Have some fun before you become practicing. Delay your ibadah until you turn a certain age. And subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ told us to take advantage of 5 things before 5. What were they? All of you know this hadith. The first thing is what? Your health before your old age. SubhanAllah, your health before your old age. Rasulullah ﷺ tells us the first advice. Your young age before your old age. Your youth before your old age. Why? Because youth is the time. Your youth, and take this concept out of your head. You know, we're living in an environment that we think that youth is only up to 18, 19, and when you're in your teens and early 20s. No. In Islam, a person is considered a youth up to the age of 40. Even in your 38, 39, you're still considered a youth, because 40 is the time when a person's intellect has reached its highest in Islam and is mature at that age. So Rasulullah ﷺ says, take advantage of your youth before your old age, because youth is the time that you establish your life. Your youth is a time when you establish your life, you think about your future. I'm not talking about the worldly sense only, but your deen, where I'm heading towards my life. Am I going to be a religious person all my life? Am I going to be a learned person? Am I going to be the one who memorizes the Quran or puts the effort in learning the deen or in memorizing the Quran? This is when you put goals for yourself in your youth. You know, sometimes you see, subhanAllah, maybe your sister-in-law, your sister, she has maybe 2 children. Sometimes, and she's running after them all day long. All day long she's looking after them and running after her children. Maybe you see your old grandmother, your old grandfather. She's sick, he's sick, and he's unable to practice the deen properly. Or maybe you see someone who's old but has not entered into Islam properly. He's not accepted or embraced their religion properly because they have that mentality. So imagine if you were one of these people. Imagine if you had 2 children, and you had to look after them, run after them day long. Imagine if you were this old lady, sick, and you were sitting down. Imagine if you were an old man sick, sitting down on the chair, unable to walk around, do things. Imagine if you were an elderly person who did not embrace the deen yet, because you have this mentality, when I get older, then I'll embrace my religion. Imagine if you were in their shoes. How much time would you put in for your deen? How much time would you put in for Islam, for learning the Quran, learning Islam, memorizing the Quran, memorizing the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, giving da'wah to people? Or would your life be run around your sickness? Would your Islam be run around your sickness, or your children, or your inability to practice the deen? So imagine if you were in these shoes, in these people's shoes, what would you do? So Rasulullah ﷺ told us to take advantage of our youth before we get old. Because in old, every single one of us, if Allah grants us a long life, we'll go through old age. We'll go through old age, and when you do become old, you're not as active as you were when you were a youth. You know, when you're a youth, you're pumped and you're ready to go to lectures and you're ready to go to the rules. That's if you're practicing. You're ready to go to the rules, you're ready to listen, you're ready to take down notes, you're ready to attend lessons, sit down for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. You have that energy to learn about Islam, but you won't have that energy once you get old. You'll get tired. So this is the first thing that the Prophet ﷺ told us to take advantage of. The second thing,
your wealth.
It does not need to be in order. Yes, one of them is your
wealth before your poverty.
Excellent. Your wealth before your poverty. And we're not going by order. Alright? Your wealth before your poverty, subhanAllah. Because sometimes, you know, one day you might be rich. One day, or 1 year you might have a job that pays you good. The other year you might get fired or sacked, or you might want to leave that work. And your pay is not there. So use that, your wealth, before you come to a stage where you don't have that wealth. And we're talking about spending in the path of Allah. You know, you have the dinner for Auburn. I see Brother Hakan, you just wrote the dinner tickets for Auburn. And here's your chance. If you have wealth, support the center. Seriously, support the center, subhanAllah. And this will be for your akhirah. This will be for your akhirah. And on that topic of giving, subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ tells us about a man who was lost in the barren desert. In the barren desert. Barren means nothing grows there. He was lost. And a cloud. He saw a cloud, a rain cloud. And an order was given to the rain cloud. This hadith is in Muslim. To go to the garden, the orchard of such and such person, and to rain on his garden. So this person stood up and followed the cloud, the rain cloud. And he followed until the rain cloud stopped in a valley of garden, where the person had vegetables, garden of vegetables, etc. And it started to pour down. And this rain made a small stream. And the person was standing at the end of the stream. And he was shoveling the stream into the different parts of his garden. So the person went to this man and he said, "What is your name? What is your name?" He said, "Why do you ask me my name?" The garden said, "What do you ask my name for?" He said, "Because I saw this cloud and I heard a voice ordering the cloud to go and water the garden, the orchard of so-and-so." So he mentioned his name. He said, "Okay." He said, "Why did you ask?" He said, "Now that you have, why did you ask?" He said, he mentioned the reason why he asked, because the cloud was being ordered. And he said, "I want to know what the person who followed the cloud," he said, "I want to know what you do to receive this type of blessing." Because rain in the desert, remember the beginning of the hadith, what type of desert? Barren desert. Nothing grows there. Rain in the barren desert is a blessing. So I want to know, what do you do to achieve this, receive this type of blessing? He said, "Now that you have asked, I'll tell you, I'll let you know. Is that you see this orchard, this garden of mine, I take the produce, the vegetation that I get, and I divide it into thirds. The first third I give, I spend it on my family, I give it to my family to eat. The second third I give it to the poor people, the poor, the beggars who pass by the desert, the hungry who pass by the desert. I give it to them for the sake of Allah. And the last third, I put it back into my garden to sustain it. The money that I get from the last third, I put it back into my garden." SubhanAllah, this person, he divided his wealth into 3 parts. And he received the blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his sustenance. So imagine if you have $900 a week coming in. Try this. Divide your wealth into 3 parts. 300 give it to the center. Give it to wherever you want. 300, keep it for yourself. 300, spend it on your family. See what happens to your wealth. See what happens to your life. But we can only suggest, but your iman will make you do this. Your iman and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make you do this. It sounds easy on paper when you read it on the hadith. Sounds easy in a lecture, but it's very difficult to do when you get out there to divide your wealth into thirds, and to give 1/3 of that in the path of Allah in charity and donations. So, what was that? What was the part of that hadith? Where did we reach up to?
Health before sickness.
Poverty, richness before poverty. Excellent. That was the second one, and we're not going in order. What's the third one? Someone can think of. Excellent. Top. Yes, that was the last one. You mentioned before that? Time. Someone mentioned time, yeah? Life before death is the last one. Excellent. We'll discuss that last. Time before you become, your free time before you become preoccupied. Before you become preoccupied. This is another blessing that Allah has given us. Your free time before you become preoccupied. SubhanAllah, how many of us have free time? How many of us are not married? And we have more free time than the ones who are married. How many of us who are married and don't have children? And we have more free time than the ones who have children. Huh? So use this free time in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Use this free time in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of the salaf, when they used to seek knowledge, subhanAllah, and we learned this in Medina, the Shaykh was saying, and he said, you know, that he'll get visitors. Getting visitors is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your house. And these people will be, the people who own the house, they'll be like, subhanAllah, the salaf, yani, they'll constantly be engaged in knowledge. So sometimes they'll get visitors. And what they'll do at that time, when they get visitors, not to waste their time, they'll speak to the visitors and they'll be sharpening their pencils at the same time, getting ready. When the visitors leave, that's it, their pencils are already sharpened. So that's how they used to utilize their time. Not to waste any moment, to kill two birds with one stone, as they say. So as their visitors there, oh, how's your family? They'll be sharpening the pencils and getting his equipment ready to seek knowledge, so he doesn't waste time when the visitors leave. So this is how they used to utilize their time. We waste it, and the biggest time waster that we have in our house is the television. Television, subhanAllah, is the biggest waster of time in our houses. Whether it be by playing Xbox, or those games that people have in their houses, or whether it be by watching movies or TV programs that take most of our time. Whether it be by watching nonsense. Things that do not benefit us in the akhirah, or by watching haram things. By watching haram things. And that's the biggest waster. And the internet, of course. And it's like, you can say television. It will do you great good if you take that television and put it outside and don't have a television inside your house. If you want the news, read it. Read the news. Don't even trust the news that you get on, and that you get by see on TV. Read the news. You don't need television. You have to utilize your time. What does television do to you? Watch TV. Watch movies. Spend 3 hours sitting down on movies. Sometimes you get movies which are 3 hours. Documentaries 4 hours. Wasting time flicking through the channel. Some people have. I've seen people with hundreds of channels. In Saudi, I think. One brother was telling me he was just flicking through the channels, took him like half an hour, 45 minutes just flicking through the channels. Just waiting there, just flicking through the 500 channels. 45 minutes to an hour it took him. So an hour gone just flicking. He could have memorized some verses from the Quran. He could have utilized that time. So that's why Prophet ﷺ told us to utilize, to take advantage of our time before we get preoccupied. And the ones who don't have children, ask the ones who have children, that once you get children, especially in their early years, the child takes most of your time. The child takes most of your time. Do they not? The children, those who are fathers, those who are mothers, realize this, that your children, when they are when they're growing up, between the ages of 1 to 2, they take most of your time. You won't be able to do anything. The child dictates your life. When do you wake up? When do you do this? When do you do that? At the middle of the night you wake up, he's crying. So utilize your time wisely, brothers and sisters, before you don't have this time. Before this time goes away. And free time, you have it a lot in your youth. Free time, you have it a lot in your youth. Utilize this. Another thing was your health before you get sick. Because if Allah gives you a long life, everyone gets sick. Everyone gets sick. If you don't get sick, you know, you're divine, you're like an angel. Everyone gets sick. Every one of us gets sick. And sometimes the sickness will will prevent you from doing good things. Prevent you from reading the Quran. Sometimes a person might be paralyzed. Maybe a person might be paralyzed. He's unable to flick the Quran. He's unable to read the Quran. A person might get blind. A person might go in an accident, lose a limb. SubhanAllah. And you will get sick. It's part of being a human being. It's part of being a human being. So utilize your health. Utilize your health before you get sick. And at the end, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, your life before your death comes. And this summarizes the hadith. Your life before your death. This summarizes our whole life. How many of us waste our lives, subhanAllah? Waste the life that we have, that we've been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And subhanAllah, the people of the fire of hell will call out when they see the people of Jahannam to show us the value of this life. The people of Jahannam will call out after they have been burned, tortured in Jahannam by the punishments that Allah has placed upon them in Jahannam. They'll look at the people of paradise and they'll call out to them, أَنَفِيدُ عَلَيْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ أَوْ مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهِ, to give us something that Allah, to give us, أَنَفِيدُ, to give us a drop of water from heaven, or something that Allah has given you, just a drop. And the people of heaven said, قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ حَرَّمَهُمَا عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ, that indeed Allah has forbidden, made haram, the drop of water and whatever provisions, a part of the provisions from Jannah, haram for the kafirs, for the disbelievers. SubhanAllah, what does this verse tell you? That the life of this dunya is not even worth that one drop of water from Jannah. That the life from this dunya is not even worth one drop of water from Jannah. And we're wasting our time. We're wasting our time. Allah says in another verse, let every soul fear Allah and let every soul prepare. Let every soul account for what he has, see what he has prepared for tomorrow. Allah calls your day of judgment tomorrow. Allah calls it in the Quran tomorrow. Why does He call it tomorrow? Why does He call it tomorrow? Because when you are resurrected on the day of judgment, your life will feel like it was yesterday. It will feel like it was yesterday. And we waste this life. We waste this life. Ya Ikhwan, you have to utilize this life before the death comes to you. And know this, that every day that goes by, you are heading towards death, and death is heading towards you. So a collision course, as they say. You are heading towards death, and death is heading towards you. It will meet you in your appointed time, when Allah has appointed you. Whether it be in a car accident, whether it be by cancer, whether it be by something else, or heart attack, something else, it will meet you. So take advantage of your life before the arrival of death. So the Shaytaan will say, I do not have any authority over you. I do not have any sultan any power over you. I did not take you by the collar and force you to do this haram. I did not force you to look at women. I did not force you to commit zina. I did not force you to talk to that boy, to talk to that man. I did not force you to be disrespectful to your parents. I did not force you to take interest. I did not force you to backbite. I did not force you to commit murder. I did not force you to steal. I did not force you to mock the religion of Islam. I did not force you to do that. I did not force you to do this. Except that I invited you. And all you did was accept. SubhanAllah, simple basic rule that we understand in our lives. You know, when we have kids, we tell them, when they go to school, when your kids go to school, you say to them, you know, do not take drugs. You know, your teenagers, you know, when your kids become teenagers, you say, do not take drugs. Say no to drugs. People might invite you, here, take some of this, smoke some of this, or inhale some of this. You say to your child, say no, when a person gives it to you. You know, subhanAllah, when the police comes and you're intoxicated, you don't say to the police that this person gave me the drugs. You're the one who took it. Likewise, the same situation, simple, basic etiquette of life, this simple rule, simple principle in life, we understand it, but in the akhirah these people will forget it. That I invited you, you're the one who accepted. I was the one that only put the whispers in your heart. You're the one who made these whispers into a reality. It was your deeds, your actions. So, after the Shaytaan says this, he will say, فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Do not blame me. Do not blame me. Blame yourselves. Your own selves. You're the reason who made these things into reality. You can't keep pointing the finger to other people. And this is a lesson that we learn, brothers. You can't keep on pointing the finger for your own shortcomings in your religion, in your deen, to other people. You know, sometimes people make comments, I don't pray there. I don't pray there because that masjid is built over there. I don't pray there because that's the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah Bukhari house. I don't pray there because that masjid is there. These certain people go to these masjids or these centers. You're blaming other people. What's your problem? What type of statement is that? It is never your fault. You're the one who's meant to pray, not the masjid. You're the one who's meant to pray. You're the one who's meant to go. So we're always blaming people. I don't go to that center because there's a certain person that prays in that center and I don't want to see his face. Always putting the blame of your own shortcomings on other people. So this verse is making us learn that we should always hold ourselves accountable. We should always hold ourselves accountable. Do not play the blaming game, as the Shaytaan blames other people. Now, subhanAllah, even the parents in schools, and when their child, when they see their child taking the wrong path, you know, sometimes you have families, the child takes the wrong path, and the father starts blaming the school, his friends. You know, it's his friends, or the neighborhood, starts blaming the neighborhood that they're living in. The family starts blaming the TV. How much of it is the parents' fault? How much of it is your fault that your kid is like that, that your child is like that? Most of it is your fault. Most of it is your fault. Then the Shaytaan will say, مَا أَنَا بِمُصْلِحِكُمْ وَمَا أَنْتُمْ بِمُصْلِحِي. SubhanAllah, Allah uses the word surkha here. The word surkha is a special type of screaming. is a special type of cry, scream that you make when you're terrified. For example, when your house is burning down, when you see someone burning in front of you, when you see a lion or a tiger attacking you, and you make that cry for help, that you know that you cannot help yourself, that you need someone else's assistance. So the Shaytaan says that I cannot come to your aid, nor can you come to my aid today. We are both in this together. We're both going to suffer the punishment, the same punishment. And then he carries on saying, إِنِّي كَفَرْتُ بِمَا أَشْرَكْتُمُونِي مِنْ قَبْلِ, that I completely reject all that you associated with me. All that you associated with me. How did you associate something with the Shaytaan? By following, by obeying the Shaytaan, and falling into your desires. And then this verse is concluded by Allah saying, إِنَّ الظَّالِمِينَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ, that indeed the transgressors, the evildoers, for them is a painful torment in the fire of hell, of course. Now, brothers and sisters, we'll conclude by saying that, subhanAllah, that this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is giving you the Quran, and that is giving you this verse. This verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it to you. SubhanAllah, this conversation or this dialogue will happen in the future. And it is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has placed it in the Quran for you to ponder upon, to reflect. And many other verses in the Quran will show us. But remember, at the end of the day, it is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is showing you what's going to happen. You know how easy life is, subhanAllah. How easy Islam is. Allah has given you what's going to happen. That this is going to happen if you do this. This is going to happen if you do that. You know, He's all, you know, life is an exam and Allah has given you the answers. How easy the exam is. How easy do you want the exam to be? He's given you the answers. The answers are in front of you. It's up to you to change your life. It's up to you to change your life. And do not play this blaming game. Do not blame others for your shortcomings in your deed. Blame yourself. Account yourself. And with this, we'll end it here. Jazakumullahu khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.